Welcome back to Decoding Wisdom, guys. We're back in the studio, which means we've got another guest lined up for you. And today's guest is very special. One of my very close friends, known him for three and a bit years now, ever since I've moved to Canada. He owns a training facility, a performance training facility. He used to be a baseball player, D2 baseball player back in the States, was on scholarships, but now owns, as I said, a performance training facility and is doing very, very well. So we'll decode some fitness myths, decode some of his life, his learnings, and get into it. But just before that, shout out to South Australia for winning the Sheffield Shield after 29 years. Go Sackers. But with that, welcome to the show, Dustin.
Thank you very much. Super pumped to be here. It's going to be a good time.
Amazing. So with GPT, right? Godden Performance Training, that's the facility's name. Can you define what it actually is? Because a lot of times when you look at performance training facilities, it's often construed with athletic performance, so to say. But what does GPT do?
There's a lot to unpack here.
Straight away, we get right into it.
Right into it, hit them where it hurts. No. GPT it's a place that became a creation of a hybrid of two places I was working at the time. I was working at a large fitness chain, primarily dealing with people who had injuries, more of a older or elderly adult population. So a lot more get out of pain free moving. And then on the other side of my job in the evenings, I was in another facility working with high level sports teams, high level performance, more so trying to maximize output for these athletes from youth up to collegiate level. So GPT started as a vision of being able to put both of those clientele in the same space without any sort of, for lack of better terms, like people getting worried or upset or intimidated by one another and feeling like they have a unified space. So one of the things we came up with when we opened GPT was a slogan. It was helping people become athletes and athletes become champions. So that way we could mesh.
Wow. No, I love that quote, because a lot of times when you go into gyms, people often are very like they're very scared to sort of come out of the shell in an environment.
Absolutely.
Because it can be very intimidating as well.
It's a vulnerable space.
Yeah, when you go into a gym and you see like people just pumping tin left, right, center, chucking weight around as if it's nothing, and then for someone new to walk in, just be like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? Right? It's a very tough space to be. So no, that makes sense. But I actually want to take a step, but we'll get to the GPT stuff. But I want to talk about you, right?
Okay.
Your story, because you had aspirations, and correct me if I'm wrong, to actually go pro in baseball, right?
Absolutely.
And what was that journey like? Could you just elaborate more on what you did? Where did you play a baseball? What you thought your aspirations were, and like how did that unfold?
It was a long journey. So if I'm being completely transparent, the love for baseball started from a hate for running.
What?
I was playing other sports at the time, and this is like
Okay.
small youth.
Yeah.
And, I was in soccer, I was doing other things, and I really hated running. So like, I would honestly, 3 games into playing soccer, I requested to be the goalie. Like, it was that.
Wow.
So then when I played baseball, I realized I could excel. It was a little bit more of a strategy, thought-provoking approach to sports, and not just go, athletic ability and tire yourself out. And for someone that didn't like running, this really resonated. I took it even a step further as I progressed and became a pitcher. So we took all the running off the table.
Yeah.
With that being said, took a lot more mental pressure and things like this. And I think, looking back, it served me quite well in how life has bloomed. But from there, we started more so, again, working on the pitching, trying to develop there and sort of stand out. We took that journey. We played high-level travel elite baseball here in the city with some of the higher-end teams. Then we ended up going out to playing for a team out in Welland, actually. So shout out to my parents for making that drive when I couldn't drive all the time.
Yeah.
Hour and a half back and forth, 2-3 times a week.
Jesus
So we could
Christ.
play, train, do what was necessary. When it ended up doing that, getting into showcases, being seen, and which led to a scholarship opportunity in Pennsylvania.
Wow. Just on that, I think I can relate to the parental thing you just mentioned, which is shout out to all the parents who do all the driving and like the time and effort and the money they put into the kids.
It's the unsung heroes.
Oh my God. Even with me, with my cricket, it was every now and then back in Abu Dhabi, we had to go to Dubai because that's where like the UAE cricket camp used to be.
Absolutely.
And again, hour and a half, few times a week, training at 8 to 10 at night, and you're coming back like around midnight. Dad's got to go to work, mom's got to go to work, but they still put you ahead. So it's like
it's a grind.
Shout out to all the parents out there, seriously.
Absolutely. It can't be done without you.
So you said Pennsylvania. I thought it was Pittsburgh for some reason. Actually,
yeah,
no.
so
is Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania?
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. North America.
So yeah, we were about 2 hours outside of Pittsburgh. For all main events, traveling, going to see sports games, like everybody would go down towards Pittsburgh, spend some time in there. We were actually in Erie, Pennsylvania, so a little bit smaller of a town. Two sort of competing schools in the area, but yeah, it became home for about 5 years.
5 years, eh?
Yeah.
So you were on a scholarship over there?
Yes,
right?
I was.
So my assumption is, did you want to go pro at that point?
Oh, absolutely. I think almost every kid at that age that has an opportunity to play collegiate level sports has aspirations of going pro to some degree. Whether the reality sets in and when is different based on sort of that trajectory of what level the school is, how well they're doing, their records, how they perform, injuries, different things. But I think everybody starts with that dream, at least at one point, to where like, how cool would it be to make a living, make money, support people playing a game? Yeah.
So you would have been 17, 18?
Yeah.
Around?
Yeah.
Right? And then what happened?
Eventually reality sets in. You start to realize that like this stuff is hard, and there's a reason the guys get paid what they do to play at the professional level when they get there, because even just getting past the collegiate level in itself is another filter that drops off a majority of people trying to achieve it. So just the relentless pursuit of excellence when that is your job and your primary source of income, it's something that unless you do it or try to do it, you don't understand. And this is what like a lot of people take the position of professional athletes got it made, but what they don't see is the 4 a.m. wake up for training, the go home, the eat, the rush back out to something else, and then here and there. And like, it is work. They're not just doing this for fun. It is still a job, and their income and trajectory of their career is based on how they perform every day. And it's about what can you do for me today, not what did you do yesterday. And I think, and that's why some of the greats, you hear stories about their training, Kobe Bryant being relentless, spending extra hours doing the thing, because these are the things he had to do to rise above everybody else that was at that level at the time. You have to do more. You have to be different. And one of my favorite mentors always uses a quote like, to be extraordinary is extraordinary. You have to do something extra outside of the ordinary. And when you are a pro, everybody sets the standard of doing those things. So how do you do more to be better, right? So it's a high level demand. And there was a point to where, we had the opportunities. I was invited to some open level tryouts. It was like, hey, MLB teams, come out, let's see you go. And it was a crude reality, but I distinctly remember hearing from the scout at the time. It was like double barrel scenario, 2 pitching mounds. We're both throwing at the same time, scouts everywhere. One was a lefty, I was a righty, part of my downfall. And I was throwing 86, 87, had some decent stuff that could move, was pretty accurate, but this lefty was just coming off a rehab. Clearly they had seen him before, and he was throwing about 82, 79, and they were like, look, if you can hit 85, we'll sign you right here, right now.
As in you?
To the lefty.
Oh.
I was throwing 86, 87, but as a righty, I needed to be 92 plus. And that was kind of the discrepancy, because there is so much more right-handed pitchers that go through this process versus left-handed. So the desire is higher for left-handeds. And like, there's other factors obviously in that mix, but that was just a distinct, conversation that I remember hearing and having. And it was like, yeah, we need you to like bump up too if you want an opportunity kind of thing. And, there is a certain level of limitation that you can achieve when it comes to this stuff. The training, the nutrition, you can influence it to a certain degree, but I do think you sometimes hit your walls. And at that point in time, based on what I had, where I was, and what my current knowledge was, I was doing the best I could. So like, I gave it a shot. I gave it a run for the money. Just didn't pan out. And, pending that, there was some shoulder wear and tear, some injuries, and you started to see things coming up as time went on. And it was like, you're forced to make a decision where you keep pushing the dream, or, you pivot and say, what's next? What's the next chapter? And it got to that point where opportunities kind of came and gone. It was there. It was like I was finishing up school, so I was going to have to move home, and we took it from there. So then I started focusing on my career and pivoted from wanting to play professionally to wanting to work with professionals. And that shifted me into more so the kinesiology, the biomechanics, movement pattern based performance focus.
With was it tough knowing that was it? Because to begin with, like, I've been in a similar situation where you're like, okay, yeah, let's this is pretty much be all end all. This was back at university in England. It was so in England you have this system of not scouting, but like you have your domestic cricket at the highest level, which is your county cricket. So imagine like London in Ontario is like in the Middlesex County.
Yep.
So Middlesex would be a county cricket club.
Yeah.
That's and then you represent them. So it would be in that sense. So that's like first class cricket, which is the epitome of domestic cricket. And then you would have 5 universities in England under the tab of like MCCU, which is like the highest level of university cricket you can play. And there were only 5 universities who have that accreditation.
Okay.
Right? So my university was one of them. So when I went there to trial to get into the club, because when you go to a university in England and you want to join their cricket or like whatever sport, you go through trials to be in the team. And it was so competitive just to get into the club, regardless of, so we had 5 teams.
Yeah.
Right? Within those 5 teams, it was, you had the top crop, the MCCU, and then you had the first team, second team, third team, fourth team.
Yeah, exactly.
But the top was what you want to play, because from there there's a possibility of you getting scouted, and potentially get a professional contract. So a couple of my mates actually play professionally now, who went through that system. But when I trialed for them, and I'd already played international cricket by then, like age group stuff, right, for the UAE. That I still remember going there, and we are, as you said, you're going against a different pitcher, I'm going against a different player, a cricketer, right? And you're just like, geez. For me, it was like, oh my God, like they're built a bit different. Like, I don't know if I could physically do that. Or like, I don't know if I have that skill in me. And that was like a reality, like a moment when reality just kicked in, and I was like, okay, maybe this is tough. Like, I've played pro, but can I go pro? I don't really know.
Yeah.
But my question there is, for me, that was a very tough moment to digest and be like, oh God, like this is all I've known up until now. Now what do I do? So what was your mindset at that point? Like, was it tough for you to accept it?
I mean, yeah, I think so. For me personally, it was more of a sort of like the fame, it faded slowly. Like, it wasn't an instant moment of stop. It was like okay, we know this is how this is going, and it slowly started to take that turn, and you could see the path ahead. So it was more of a slow, steady acceptance instead of just some people, for example, that experience an injury and its career ending. It's like a black and white. They're there. It's done. It's over, and they have to accept that. For me, it was like throughout the entire last season, you kind of saw where it was going. The team's record at the time wasn't doing as good, so exposure started to go down in terms of scouts showing up and things like this. So like, writing was on the wall. And, you just start to, like I said, reality sets in. And I think, you almost have to be extremely ignorant if you don't notice that, based on, what's in front of you and the things you see when it comes to the sport, right? It's like, yeah, you know what? I have to accept the truth that I do not have the skill currently to be at that level. Could it be worked on? Yes, but at the cost of what, right? How much more time? How much more effort? What am I not doing because of it? And you make a decision. So I was able to accept it. It wasn't a major thing like that. It was more so just like I don't know what's next, though. That was the hard part. It's, you knew there was an area of opportunity opening up. You didn't know how you were going to fill it, though, right? So it was, what was the next chapter?
No, the uncertainty, right?
Absolutely.
Looming around it, like, okay, this is all I've known. Now what do
Yeah.
I do?
It's like, next.
but it's an intimidating space to be in. Like, and everyone, I think, people, even folks who you see on a daily basis, who you think have figured everything out, like, I'm sure, like, the CEO of Microsoft, like Satya Nadella, for example, would be, I'm sure he every day is like, what am I doing? Or like has those
For
thoughts
sure.
crossing around. But but then it feels like you were primed in a way when when you realized that was pretty much the end, you kind of were like, yeah, okay, no, it makes sense. I think that's a level of self-awareness which doesn't exist, especially in that age group as well, right? Because that's all you want to do. So do you think, where do you think that self-awareness came from for you? Was it something your parents potentially, like the way you grew up? Does it come from there? Or like...
Absolutely. And I would I think, there's nature versus nurture in a lot of things. And I think the environment that was created by the family and like how I was nurtured, how I grew up, it was a very much like, there's no necessarily right way, there's your way and it's supported kind of thing. So, just definitely that played a huge part because that kind of sets the lens. It sets the filter on what you're looking through and how you approach that. And like, I was always able to bear witness to a good example of that. And, not everybody has that opportunity. So definitely a big blessing in disguise, even though in the moment you maybe don't realize it till you get a little older. But that definitely set the tone.
That's amazing because my only point of reference is me.
Yeah.
And I had a bloody tough time with it. I was just like, Jesus Christ, what am I doing? Do you know what I mean? But then comes GPT. So you move back from PA, right? And you're like, okay, gonna go back to Canada, back to London, and so you started out working at Good Life for a bit, right? As a personal trainer. You did your master's in kin and
kin with a focus on biomechanics.
Biomechanics, okay, gotcha. And then you're like, okay, personal training's the route to go. How did you come about the personal training realm?
Honestly, it was, life has a funny way of working. You kind of fall into circumstance. And so I came back, got into do my master's at Western in London.
Shout out
to Western.
Big up.
So pursued that. And then again, another situation where I'm in another city. I don't know anybody. I'm living by myself. It's like a whole chapter of, again, just trying to figure it out, right? I did, however, have some really good news when I came back that there is no eligibility requirements to play sports here versus the States. So despite coming from my master's, I could still play ball. Even though it's a very different thing in Canada, at least here. It's about a 6-week season versus an all-year commitment in the States. We were definitely athlete students in the States, not student athletes. Athletes came first.
Wow.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a good spot
I had
to
good
be in.
grades, but don't get me wrong. Some people didn't.
Yeah.
But here it's very much so the other way. It's like student and you can play sports for fun kind of thing. So having that opportunity made the transition a lot easier because you come into a team, you instantly have a group, right? You instantly create a social circle of, they may not be full-on friends yet, but you have something in common. So you start making that. But came there, was really just kind of grinding out master's stuff, which the beginning of my master's, to my surprise, it was a research period.
Oh,
which basically translates to I didn't do a whole lot of anything for a while. It was just like start reading, basically, discovery. So, you know, being single guy at the time, having my own place, just playing ball, I was living the dream. I was just hanging out. And then one day I was able to look and be like, yeah, I'm losing the athletic shape here. We're not doing much. Like when you go from training almost daily, 1 to 4 hours a day, 6 days a week, to not doing anything because there's nothing that's regimented. At least there wasn't at the time. It was almost like you took it as a temporary vacation because no one was telling you to do it. It's the first time you didn't have a schedule. So like I got lazy, straight up. I'm not gonna lie. But then I realized that pretty quick, and I was like, okay, time to get it together. I had a Good Life membership from when I used to live in the GTA, so I was like, let's find a local Good Life. Go in there. I dressed up. I also decided I was gonna hand out resumes to the strip of restaurants because I could make some income here, and there was Good Life right beside it. So I walked in. I was like, yeah, just want to switch my membership over. And the person working the front desk was like, are you looking for a job? I was like, actually, yeah. I was dressed up. I had the tie. I had the button-up shirt. I had a stack of resumes.
The full pack.
Old school kind of thing.
Starter pack.
The starter pack, like, hire me, please. Broke student approach. And so I was like, yeah. And they're like, okay. You know, have you ever thought about being a personal trainer? And I was like, no. What are you going to school for? I was like, kinesiology, biomechanics, like the study of human movement. They're like, this could fit. I was like, actually, I think it could. What's it entail? And then they're like, yeah, so basically when you build clients, you kind of build your own schedule within reason. You can be flexible hours. So I was like, perfect. When I have to run courses or go to class, I can make the schedule adapt with a baseball schedule. Yeah, for sure. Sign me up. So I did it. I went in and went through the trainings, did all the things, and, you know, got my certifications and whatnot. And then after about a couple months of being on the floor and starting to work with people, I got very busy, like fast. Like I had a full client roster within like 8 weeks kind of thing.
How many people were like?
Well, at the time I was still part-time.
Yeah. So
because
like student,
I was still a student.
An athlete.
But I was full.
And then this, okay.
Like, so I was 24, 35 hours of training.
Wow.
Weekly.
So what did
within like 8 weeks of being there.
What did a day look like? Like a day in the life back then?
Day in the life back then, and it changed, and it's a very much like you kind of, as much as you can create your own schedule, you're at the mercy of your clients. And so I would wake up, 6 a.m. client, 7, 8, 9, go to class for 10, have some lunch, maybe another class at 1, back to the gym, 4, 5, 6, 7 type thing. Like that was the day. On days where I had baseball, it was like afternoon clients 4 or 5, practice at 7.
Wow.
Work till 10, that kind of thing. So like it was stacked for sure, but it worked. It worked for me in my circumstance. But the big sort of realization for me, because this was not ever a path I had thought of. It just kind of fell into place, and life has a funny way of sort of putting you in front of opportunity. It's up to you to take it. And when I was busy, things started aligning, and I was like, now I'm getting referrals of so-and-so has this issue going on. Can you see them? Because I was getting good feedback from people that I was genuinely helping. That was, I guess, to some degree outside the norm of the average trainer at the time. You know, not to say that there's not a bunch of amazing trainers out there. There definitely is. Through all aspects and everywhere you go, there's always going to be some great trainers. But it was slightly different because I had more than the required background. And that's what made a difference. So having my undergrad in kin and sport and exercise science, that made a difference. It was something outside of just the standard certification that they give you. That a majority of people take. It's like weekend cert, done, train some people, right? Mine was like, you know, in actuality, you know, $100,000 cert of schooling and these kinds of things without knowing that's what it was going to become. So I was able to leverage this and actually make it work for me, which changed the game. And that kind of clicked for me because then I was going through school, but I was super busy. And it was like any opportunity that came up to add people, they were getting added into my schedule. And I was like, maybe we're on to something. It's like maybe I'm pretty good at something here. Because like I've always been a people person.
Yeah.
But I was able to be a people person with also the background strength of my education and mesh it into the same job.
Yeah.
So now I could actually get along with people, give them a good experience, and also truly help, which made a huge difference. And the intrinsic gratitude and value I got from doing this job stood out to me. It wasn't just a paycheck.
Interesting.
It was like I was going home, researching on my own time to try and be like, what can I do more to help this person better? And it became doing it because I loved it, not because I had to do it.
Wow.
So that actually, at the time, took priority over my school because I just wanted to dive into this stuff and the people I was working with and get hands-on and on the floor and create a solution. The schooling was a distraction. It became one.
You had to get it in.
Yeah, we had to do it, and I still did it well. And, I
Yeah,
saw it through and got the degree. But it sort of laid the bricks for a whole different path that I never saw.
Wow.
Which was crazy to me.
But so you know how I think we were just last night at dinner, we were talking about ikigai, the whole Japanese concept of like doing what you love but for a living. So a lot of people spend majority of their lifetimes miserable.
Absolutely.
Trying to figure out what can I do, or some of them don't even have the awareness of thinking, oh yeah, like that's, I want to understand what my purpose is so that I could do something and be independent and, have that freedom that we all crave for at the end of the day, versus having that drive of like, finding that purpose. Even for people who have that drive, sometimes it takes them years, maybe decades to actually find that purpose, right? So me and you, we've spoken so many times about like, okay, being independent, doing this, yada, 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 and whatnot. But then for you, from what I'm hearing, is this is your purpose.
I think
right?
so.
You think so?
I think so. I don't know if this is, end of statement period.
Oh, yeah.
This is what it's going to be. I think it amounts to more. But it's definitely in the same realm of this, for sure.
In the sense of like providing that service, right?
Absolutely.
Like, that will always be the foundation. And then the way you grow, it's going to be like it'll be multidimensional, so to say.
I come home from work, I would say 99.9% of the time, being able to sit there and like, I helped people today and I'm making a living doing it. Like, blessing. You know how many people can't say that?
No.
Most people come home and they can't wait for a weekend because they're like, get me out of there.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it anymore. I don't think I've ever said I don't want to go to work since being in this role, because there's a passion to it, right? There's a desire to actually figure out the unknown and face challenges head on. When someone brings something new, I'm like, I don't know it yet, but we're going to solve this somehow. Yeah. Whether I have to consult others, bring people in, refer out, like we're going to find a solution together, and I'm going to get better because of this, which means overall my company is going to get better because of this.
It's interesting because, and we'll get into GPT now, but this reminds me of Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, the way he makes movies, it's like, or like he pulls off these stunts where I'm sure you saw like Mission Impossible.
Oh yeah,
this one where he jumped off a cliff
on
a bike. The prelude.
Are you
to
saying I'm like Tom Cruise? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly what I'm saying. We have Tom Cruise, guys. Come on, bring it in. But like initially so he came up with the concept and someone was like, yeah, how are you going to do it? He's like, I don't know. It's like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm going to do. But that's how he rolls, which is why if you look at the success, obviously he's Tom Cruise.
Touche.
We all try to be Tom Cruise. I mean, fair play.
Just taller.
Yeah. Hey, my height, I hope. So we good. But with the idea is like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot and see how it turns out. Like, I'm gonna make mistakes, be open to it, because I feel like people struggle taking that initial leap of faith, like the first step. Because and my first episode on this podcast, it was called Start Before You're Ready, because people overthink things, how they would be viewed, whether they'll be able to figure this out. A lot of people want like the fine polished version of whatever they want to do before actually starting it. Versus, okay, so you could do everything that you want, right, in your head, or you cook it up and whatnot, but then you haven't even, like, what's out there? Nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing to show for it. So you struggle so much, and this is so many people, but with your mindset, and this is now getting into GPT. So this is not actually a quick question here. What role did you play with OpenAI? What's the real deal? How many stock options do you have with OpenAI with ChatGPT? Because fun fact, Godden Performance Training, GPT. And if you didn't catch on to that, it's slow. But what's interesting is that ChatGPT came out in 2021, I think. Or like 21, but like early 22, it became more prevalent. And it was such, like, I remember us just joking around, like, oh God, what's this now?
What is
all
this?
Of a sudden.
Now it runs the world.
Now it runs the world, and I'm sure you use it as your assistant as well.
All the time.
But Godden Performance Training comes out, right? So you're doing this thing with
and
Good
just
Life.
so everybody knows, Godden Performance Training GPT came first.
It did, and it's legally came first. But with GPT, right? This was COVID.
It was.
Right? 2021. I moved to Canada, and I was looking for a gym. It was literally like 2 blocks down, GPT. Small space. It's grown a lot now. But initially when I walked in, I was like, oh, what's GPT? Go in, and it looked pretty sick. And, I was like, yeah, we'll try it out. But I was like, when I met Dustin, I found out that they had just opened up, and like a couple of months before I came. That just begged the question of why now? So in this podcast now, COVID was arguably one of the riskiest times to open not a brick and mortar, but like a tangible business, right? Which required
Absolutely.
a location. Are you providing some sort of a service with lockdown uncertainties? And I remember we had those lockdowns.
Absolutely.
As well, where things you just went, shops closed for a bit. Why COVID?
A lot of reasons. Reason number one, I no longer had a job. I went from working at 3 facilities, like ridiculous amount of hours, working from 1 in the morning, 6 a.m., working till 10, getting in my car, driving across town to another facility, working from 10 till 2, getting in my car, driving back to the first one, working till 7 p.m., getting in my car, driving to another facility, a third one, working till 11 p.m., getting home, going to bed, doing it again. Like, this was life before COVID happened. Not sustainable by any means, but doing what was required to try and get myself out there, get exposure, help as many as I could through the lens of how I knew how to do it. COVID happened, and guess what? Everything shut down. So I went from 3 jobs to no job. So I was able to pivot a little bit, do some online stuff, a lot of nutrition coaching online, different things that were easier because of Zoom, thankfully. But still, again, not a means to an end in regards to what I wanted to do. I got in this service so I could work with people, not with computer screens. Especially, and I distinctly remember trying to train clients in Zoom, and like somebody is setting up their phone on a banister and doing a walking lunge, and I see 2 reps, and then they disappear, and I just hear grunts. Oh, God. And then they come back, and they come back through the camera, and you had to work with what you got, but there was definitely some user error with those things. And it was, looking back at it, it's hilarious, but it built resiliency and being able to pivot. Mm-hmm. So I was faced with a decision here, and at one of the facilities I was doing training, it was kind of like I was renting space as my own business and working with all these teams and athletes. And then from there, for whatever reason, COVID led to them having to move locations, and essentially moved from about a 15,000 square foot location to where I had the gym in the back. I was running things, seeing clients, to an under 5,000 square foot facility. So like a major downsize, to the point where the individual I was working with was like, it might be hard to run a business here, just so you know. So we want to give you heads up, like within 2 months we're moving. The gym's going to get significantly smaller and more so be there as a resource for the teams, not necessarily a strong place to run a business. So just a heads up kind of thing. And I was like, okay. So I was working with people still on and off, because COVID was very on and off with restrictions. So it made it hard to build a pattern and understand a routine, because it was like, yeah, you can work within 6 feet of people. Yeah, everything's closed. Now you can work outside. Now you can do it. Like, it was so bizarre and unpredictable. But I was faced with a decision. I was like, do I let my corp go on pause and just figure something out to work in the meantime, or do I jump all in and commit to it and see how we can do it? And naturally, I jumped all in and took upon the challenge. And what that meant was, okay, I need a location. I need to figure out what we're going to do. I need to buy equipment. I need to like get everything set up. And I was actually training a client at a facility and with a shoulder problem and helping out. It turns out this individual had a building that was a service-based business, so they were shut down. So they had empty space. And then we were talking, and I was like, yeah, I just lost my space, these kinds of things. And it's like, well, we have a space that's around 5,000 square feet. Do you want to see it? Sure. Like, all right. Showed me it. There was individual units that it was going to be broken up to. So, being COVID and unpredictable, I was like, maybe we can take part of it. Just take one of the smaller units. So we did. We came to an agreement. I was like, this could work. And because we had nothing but time at that time during COVID, I had 3 months of a grace period to kind of get all the renos done, build it out, outfit the facility as I could within reason. So kind of kickstarted a plan. And then it was, okay, now let's figure out how we get money for this plan.
Yeah.
So then we started talking to, some banks, business loans, this kind of stuff. And turns out at the time I couldn't get anything.
So what a surprise.
That made it, yeah. It's like when you need it, it's never there. And when you don't need it, it's offered on a silver platter. I couldn't get anything, but I had some credit cards. So it's like, okay. So I gave myself an internal challenge of basically, after talking to different mentors and going through things, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to know that if my back's against the wall, I can get myself out of a hole. What does that look like? So I gave myself 3 weeks to make $10,000. Any way I could. It didn't matter. Helping with chores around the house, like, minor things, like
10K
anything.
in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks.
10K.
Any single way I could earn it. And this included online training and stuff like this. So the grind went. I was 18-hour days. Like, the grind was happening. And 2 days before the 3 weeks, I got 10K. So I was like, that tells me if push came to shove and I can't pay a bill for a month or something happens, within 3 weeks I could generate enough to cover my bill at least for another month.
What did you do?
So we could be in survival. Dude, I ended up doing like a roof on somebody's shed. I was doing painting jobs. I was training. I was selling stuff, like literally survival mode, back against the wall. What can I do? And it worked. Like, we got it done. I sold some of the biggest training packages at the time that I had sold because I knew I had to. And that kind of opened a door for me too, in regards to the mindset of things. It's like, you can do it if you want to do it. It's how bad you want to do it, right? In everything. It's like, you will find a way if you truly want to. It's just about finding a way. And so I did. And like, quite frankly, I can't even recall how I did some of it. I just know I got to the point where I was like, I feel comfortable signing a lease. So I did it. Then we had to buy the equipment, and during COVID, weights were atrocious. It was like $3 a pound. Well,
Jesus,
there's 3,000 pounds in a weight rack of dumbbells that you put in a gym, because everything is a pair. So like, my credit card's maxed pretty fast.
Yeah.
But we did it. We did the bare minimum. I had some stuff from the previous facility. We got it in. And basically, anytime that an opportunity came up for us to earn, it got recycled back into the business, and we kept developing. But then we were so close to getting ready to open. Governments and things were like, okay, in 2 weeks on this date, things will be back to normal. Day before that date, things are not going to be back to normal. We're going to push it back. All right, we're going to push it back. I'm like, okay, now I'm paying bills but not making income. What do? Bingo. The government says fitness facilities can operate outdoors. Had this big building. We had a parking lot. I was like, I need to do something. Again, survival mode. I called up a construction company. We rented one of those big construction fences, and I made a circle around the entire parking lot with a big lock and chain. And every day I carried out every piece of gym equipment and put it in the parking lot. Every day. My brothers. This was what we did. Pound for pound, farmer's walks, in and out the building, squat racks. We built a rig. We put it out there under cement. We carried out tents. We carried out speakers every day for 3-4 weeks. It was one of the best workouts I've ever had. But we did this to kind of bring awareness to the business. We just charged a flat rate for access, pumped music, and made it a fun place to go and a somewhat social environment in a time where social environments were removed. And did we make a ton of money off that? No. But what we did was raise awareness, and people knew we were there. So when we could open, now they were checking us out. Yeah. Now they knew, because we were on the back of a building, that there was a gym there. And again, it was just having to pivot and work with what you had. So we did that. And then we finally got to open, I believe it was in July. And this was June when we were doing this, because we were supposed to open in June at the time.
Okay.
We got to open in July. Finally, we didn't have to carry out any more equipment. People could come to me again, and it started. One-on-ones. Had another coach be like, hey, can I use some space? Sure. It was, let's see how to survive, right? We'd tweak and optimize later. And I think that with a lot of people in these circumstances, they're so worried about perfecting the thing before they start that it delays the start. Whereas for me, it was get your feet wet and figure out how to swim later. And we did. And we still do that to this day. We're always trying to figure this out and grow. And it's, inevitably going to be a never-ending process.
Yeah, I don't know about the 10K in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it was just more so of a personal challenge for myself to determine that if I totally sucked at something, I can get myself out of the hole temporarily enough to create an opportunity to be better for another month. And I could at least, self-sustain the business.
So during COVID then, your parents, they're not entrepreneurs, are they?
Nope. My parents, very hardworking, but in my family, I'm the only entrepreneur.
So where did this risk-taking mindset come from then? Where do you think it stemmed from?
I don't know. I've always kind of had that mindset a little bit. I really used to love doing garage sales when I was a kid.
Oh, what, sorry?
And yard sales, garage sales.
Yeah.
As an opportunity, putting price on stuff, negotiating with people, selling lemonade, always kind of had a little bit of that hustler mindset. And quite frankly, I saw an opportunity. And I think that's where a lot of this comes from, is not necessarily the entrepreneurial drive. That's something that's further developed as I continue to walk this path. But more so being able to spot opportunity. And during this time, there was lots of gyms going under. Lots of people were closing their doors. So I saw an opportunity that there's going to be a market where there's a gap of unserved individuals looking for a place because their place closed. So why not try and open this, get it ready, so that way when we hit, there's a new gym ready to go when people are excited to go to a gym again. And try and meet that at sort of that connection point of people can't wait to go back to a public gym, can't wait to go out and socialize and lift weights and do things again because they've been stuck to their house. Why can't it be my place? So that created the push.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a risk for sure, but it was to some degree calculated. It was thought about. It wasn't just let's see what happens today.
Yeah.
And I knew from evidence of working in the field that I was pretty good at what I did. I served the clients well, and I knew in any other environment I was in doing this role, I was successful. So I might as well be successful in my own environment.
And obviously now GPT's 3 years old, three in a bit?
Almost four.
Almost
Four this year.
4 this year, right? But then during this process, what have you learned about yourself
Oh,
going
man.
through this?
Good, bad, ugly, everything. Like this.
Yeah.
There's no book on this stuff. I mean, there's lots of books on the
Yeah.
stuff, but there's no book on the stuff of like, nobody tells you what to prepare for. Nobody tells you what's coming. It's very much like entrepreneurial mindset is you eat what you kill approach. Like, unless you go out and get it, you
It's
don't
not
get
gonna
to
be
reap the
handed to you.
benefits. Like, people are just coming in, and like in the fitness space per se, there's companies out there with multi-million-dollar marketing budgets. How do you compete with that? I don't have that, right? But I'm also not trying to compete with that. And that's where we started to differentiate ourselves. That's what sort of pivoted us to realizing what game we were playing and what game we didn't want to play anymore. And that was competing with the wrong people. I read a book, actually, and it's called Blue Ocean Strategy. Great book. And it talks about sort of a red ocean and a blue ocean, red ocean being an ocean of competition, right? Everybody's competing for the same pieces of pie. Whereas blue ocean is being like, how do you differentiate yourself and not have to compete? And that really kind of set mindset a little bit as to how we approached the industry and what we were doing and what we were actually really good at versus not, right? And trying to play to our strengths as much as we can. And that was when we took a pivot from just being a gym to being a highly individualized coaching only facility.
Very interesting. And yeah, blue ocean strategy, oh my God, takes me back to business school.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's very interesting because you don't have a business background, so to say, but
No.
it's this constant drive of, okay, how can I learn? How can I improve? And how did you come across that book? Like, did you read quite often?
No, actually, I used to hate reading. That has changed. Now I read constantly and have more books than I can count, and mentors and other people consistently recommend more. Like, my save for later Amazon account is like 35 books right now because books aren't cheap. So
No,
but
you know what?
I'm also a person that when I like books, I like to have physical copies of them. I don't like digital copies, so they're in my cart for when I finish one, I buy another one, and that's how it goes.
Same, mate. I used to hate reading as well. I remember growing up, for some weird reason, like obviously when you're an athlete and stuff, reading doesn't seem cool.
Yeah.
Or like that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, that's not fair. Like, athletes don't read. Like, we play sports, and like that's what we're supposed to do: go train and like pump
It's the
iron.
caveman approach.
Yeah, proper old school
See
caveman.
ball, hit ball.
Yeah,
Smash.
But and then my parents though were like, no, you need to start reading. I was like, why? They're like, your vocabulary, the way you articulate things and speak and whatnot. And I wish I'd listened to them at that point and I tried reading. Like, I'd have these Enid Blyton like children's books or like whatever, the stories. What I didn't know the difference back then was like fiction, non-fiction. Obviously I was 10, 12. I had no idea. But fiction would just send me, like, I would just snooze off.
Yep.
I'd read a couple of pages and I'd be like, there's no image on it, no images. So I'm like, don't know really
More of
what's
a
going
picture
on.
book kind of guy.
But let's say I put a bookmark and I come back the next day or a couple of days after, I'd just be like, oh, I forgot. Oh, shit, I forgot what's already happened.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I have to go back now. I kind of just gave up on it. But comics was fine because it's imagery.
Absolutely.
And for me, I'm a visual guy. Like, visual cues just stick with me very easily. Until I came across, so in undergrad, my undergrad's in finance, I started reading like Rich Dad Poor Dad, one of the books at my uncle's house back in London, England, not Ontario.
Not Ontario.
Shout out England, UK. He had this book and I just opened it and I started reading it. And because it just there was instant correlation with what I was studying, but it explained in real life examples. I was like, oh, this makes sense. And I started reading nonfiction since then. But I used to hate it. And now you've seen my apartment now over here.
Yep.
I have so many books.
Yep.
They're just filled, and like I'm the same as you. I need it to be physical. People are like, get a Kindle. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's a screen at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
It's another screen, and I'm like, no. And reading a book, like highlighting stuff or writing
feeling
it
the
down,
pages,
the notes,
like turning the page.
Exactly. It's all, and the fresh smell of a book. Oh mate, it's stunning. It's like, opening like baseball equipment or like cricket equipment. When you first get it, you're just like, oh yeah, it smells good.
Yeah,
but,
for sure. There's it's a new car smell.
Yeah, but like it takes a level of trial and error, but also you being open-minded enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna give it a go in terms of, okay, I've never read before, but I'm gonna try reading.
Absolutely.
Like the different types of books, etc. So with that, I want to get into this chat of high performance, because that's pretty much what you do, right? It's a high performance training facility called GPT. On the way here, we were discussing what high performance means to you, right? And you said it was about like, it's a subjective concept and whatnot. So could you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, what is high performance to you, and how do you implement that with your clients?
Absolutely. And I think early on, when opening the facility and calling it GPT, there was definitely an outsider, I guess, view that it was for athletes only. On our logo, there's somebody running. Like, it very much can be perceived as such. A lot of phone calls we would get would be like, is this only for athletes? Is that what it is? And I would have to explain myself through it. But then through doing that, I actually found more reason why I liked the name. Because I don't think performance is limited to just athletes. I think if you set your sights on a goal of any sort and you do what's necessary to get there, it's performance. You're setting yourself, doing what's necessary and what's required to achieve a goal, regardless of what it is, no matter how big or how small. You are performing. You are doing the thing you are setting your sights on. And, when you zoom out from an athlete scope, they train to perform better on the field because that is their intent. But if, an overworked mom in a high C-suite level executive job is really busy and stressed, and coming to the gym 2 times a week is enough of an outlet that she can be more present, more relaxed. And there, when she is home, that's performance. Mm-hmm. And it's a different lane of it, but nonetheless, still the same endpoint. It's still performance. And I think getting that through to people and defining the word as such is what's important about it, to sort of get rid of any underlying bias. And ultimately, when you strip that away, that's what we do, is we help people get past their own limiting beliefs and bias around fitness, health, what it takes to get there, mental fortitude, resiliency. Like, these are the things we kind of tap into with people, because it's not just an A or B type of approach. There's so many factors to people's progress and what they do and how they feel. And if you approach it just one-dimensionally, it's an area of opportunity. You miss a lot of things. So unless you can encompass it all into that service, you're leaving a lot on the table and potentially not helping people to the best of your ability. Mm-hmm. So this is how it almost shaped our focus to training, in a sense of creating an environment that people feel welcome, comfortable, and inclusive in, a place that's like, quote unquote, their second home, that when they're there, they can relax, they can be themselves, they can take off the facade of work, they can let it out and just progress. And then approaching it from a very professional standpoint of, here's the training approach, here's why we're doing it, here's what, we're trying to work with around your restraints and these kinds of things, your shortcomings, your goals, and we build it based on the person, which makes it work. Because everybody is so different. You can't do the whole one-size-fits-all approach. You can, but you'll only work in one dimension. Mm-hmm. Whereas we try and work in all.
Yeah, and for all the listeners out there, one of the things at GPT is what Dustin just said. Like, it is a community, and I've seen people like your daily, people who work in jobs and stuff, absolutely killing it, like crushing it.
Absolutely.
Like I was absolutely gobsmacked, like when I saw you training some of your clients, and I was just like, they're athletes now. Like your clients
100%.
are regardless of what they're athletes at the end of the day. Like that's the sort of image that I have when I walked in, and like I saw you, the way you train, so you live up to it. But what I'm interested in, a lot of people who are a little bit skeptical or have those self-doubts when they come in as a potential client for yourself, would pose a lot of challenges to you, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
I need to make them think that they're an athlete. Oh, well, like this is normal, for example. Like you don't have to be a special kind of person to do these kind of workouts. Like everyone can do that, right?
Yeah.
But people have these limiting beliefs, which you just touched on. What are some of the tools that you use to help unlock your clients' potential, right? Or convince them that, hey, you can do this, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tools, but I wouldn't necessarily criteria it as tools per se, as it's just a genuine interest in listening to these people. Like I will sit and do a 2-hour intake with somebody sometimes. Is it the most optimal from a business standpoint to do 2-hour consults? Mm-hmm. No. But does that person feel heard? Do I actually understand what they want versus what they're saying they want? Yeah, probably. And when we can actually do that and further sort of peel back the layers like an onion as to what they're saying versus what they actually want and feel and what is, in their definition, performance for themselves, then you can actually create progress in a plan because you're meeting them where they're at and taking them where they want to go at their pace. You walk the journey with them. You're not just saying, here's a plan, go. Because, someone that's doing the best plan and program in the world, if they can't do it, it doesn't matter. Versus someone that's doing a very mediocre approach, but is consistent, will see a result. So the hardest part of doing this stuff is not in the actual doing of the thing. It's the what goes on between the ears around leading up to the thing. I don't want to go today. I'm too tired. It's the excuses and helping them surpass those things and being able to sort of pay attention and capture themselves when they fall in that rut of like, today was busy. I should probably just go home. And it's like, how do we get in between that relationship of internal thought and decision-making process and influence it to be like, yes, but this is why this is good. And this is how we approach it when. And I think this comes with the environment of, you learn these things through doing over time. Nobody teaches it this way because methodologies versus working with people and what's actually in front of you is very different. And one of the biggest components to this approach is trying to understand human behavior. It's always changing, right? And when you actually understand people and listen, you tend to hear a lot of the things that are not said. Even that sounds cliche, but you can pick up on body language. You can see when people actually relax. You can see when there's emotion behind what they say, and you can understand like, this person just needs this right now. And like, it's always about playing the game of, giving people what they need through the vehicle of what they want, right? Not the other way around. We want to make sure that when we see people, like, there's always going to be things they need, but if they have the goal of what they want, we need to make sure that's there too, because a big part of this is making it somewhat enjoyable. It doesn't have to be anyone's favorite thing in the world, but you can't hate it because as soon as you do, you stop. So how do we do that, and what factors play into that? It's an experience. It's not just a session.
I love that. I actually love that. That was so good.
Thank you.
It's an experience, not a session, with the long-term view in mind. But you mentioned something about like tapping into the inner psyche of your client, right? Like understanding what they're going through, etc. Something I've been struggling with, not recently, like I think throughout is, I call it the discipline versus intuition paradox.
Yep.
Right? With the idea that the modern world glorifies this idea of show up no matter what and always be switched on, like you got to gym every day and whatnot. But then there's also this growing trend of intuition-based training, which is go to the gym when you feel like it. So what I've been going through sometimes is my mind says, oh yeah, I know I need to train, but my body is, let's say, cooked from the last workout.
Mm-hmm.
Or my body feels fine, but my mind's saying, oh, dude, I'm like, just not feeling it today. So should we push ourselves when we don't feel like it? Or should we listen to our bodies? Like, that's why it's the discipline versus intuition. Like, it just becomes a cluster mess in your mind. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think this is very much a common thing, and we all deal with it, and anybody that says they don't is lying. I think, there's perspective on a lot of these things, right? It's like, what is the underlying reason and what are we doing this for? And I think this is where you start to see a difference between more so athletes and, everyday people. It's an athlete has things that they must do regardless of how they feel, because if they don't, they will fall behind. Whereas the everyday person, on average, people just either want to look better, feel better, or be able to move pain-free. There's so many different ways to get there. It doesn't have to be black or white. It's not a binary approach. It's not one thing or another. It can be all of the things, right? And there's seasons we go through when it comes to this stuff. There's an approach of, in this time in my life, I may have more time to contribute to going a little bit harder and having a goal. But something may come up at work, or this is a busy time, or, I have all these family events or things like this. It's okay to slow down. And I think people need to know this. And what's not spoke about enough in the topic of this is like the difference between what it takes to progress and grow and increase strength or things like this versus what it takes to maintain. And maintenance is so much less of a demand, and people don't understand how much less it is, that it's achievable for everybody. I don't care how busy you are. You may not be able to, really pump it out and excel and create this ridiculous transformation, because that does take more of an intense approach, more time commitment, more of these things. But to maintain what you have and just, fitness and health and activity, these things, like, it's not just about the aesthetic component. Like, there's a lot of good, it keeps your mind sharp. It keeps you, attentive. It allows you to have energy. There's so many benefits that come outside of the aesthetic lens that I think needs to have a little bit more focus in the industry, because we're very much an over-sexualized approach to everything now. You look at marketing, you look at billboards, you look at TV shows, like it's very much built around aesthetics and that sort of imagery, and not enough importance is placed on the internal computer of who we are as humans and what we do. So I think educating more on that is big, but I think it's human to maybe feel good but not want to do it mentally, or to feel terrible but mentally you're committed and deal with that relationship. And I think it's just being able to sort of change the lens of, why do you do it? And this is why I encourage it for most of our people, that like when it's a lifestyle, it's going to happen either way. The frequency may change, the demand, the intensity may change, but you've adopted this as a lifestyle, not just a short-term outcome. And when that's the approach, you can adapt with your body. And like, there's going to be times, don't get me wrong, where like mentally you don't want to do it, but you can, and you'll have to push through it. And there will be times when like mentally you're like, I can't wait to go to the gym, but your body's telling you, pump the brakes, and you got to listen, because it's not about necessarily that's workout. It's about what do you got to do after that workout, and are you going to feel worse, right? Yeah. Like life is bigger than just fitness. So I think we need to understand the purpose as to why are approaching these things,
Yeah.
and sort of change the lens as to what we look at it as. And like, if your goal is completely aesthetic and that's something you're pursuing, that is fine. But the more specific we get on the goal, the more specific we need to meet the requirements to get there. It doesn't care how you feel sometimes, and it's just what you have to do. So I think understanding that and matching seasons with goals is important, and that's where a lot of people drop the ball.
Seasons with goals.
Yeah, they fall to their expectations.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they go on this fitness transformation journey, they think of, oh yeah, like let's say you're, maybe a bit overweight, and you're like, yeah, I want to, start cutting down, and you see social media these days absolutely blows everything out of proportion, right? As you mentioned, aesthetics, etc. So, and people are like, yeah, I want to look like that guy. I don't know if you've been seeing like Ashton Hall, like
put your face in ice or whatever.
Ice at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m.
Which, for the record, does nothing.
But the guy's jacked. Like he's a jacked guy. So a lot of people, like I saw over, like, what's your fitness workout? Like, I don't even know if he's like, I kid you not. I thought like, is he on something or is he natty? I don't know. Like he's so jacked. But point being, you have all these influencers and stuff who set these, you look at them and you're like, oh my God, how do I look like that? Or like, I'd love to be in that shape. Versus that's an expectation you set yourself internally. You're like, that's what I want to be. But the people don't realize how tough that road is to actually get there.
Absolutely. It's a fault in expectation.
Exactly. And when you're working out then, and you have this whole discipline intuition paradox that you're fighting with on a day-to-day basis. And then you're like, yeah, you got to have your expectations and understand that that's the journey you've signed up for. But oftentimes, and scientifically we know, like obviously high performance athletes we've been, right? And we understand that sometimes rest days are the most beneficial things that you could do. But then but your body needs it.
Yeah.
And there were days where I used to feel very guilty of taking a rest day, but my body needed it. Versus now that I don't play professionally, now it's like, oh, on a rest day, I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Or like on a day when I'm supposed to work out, I'd be like, what if I just stay home, in bed, relax?
And that serves a purpose too.
But my question to you then is, how do you differentiate sometimes between laziness and recovery?
I actually think it's pretty clear. So recovery is an active pursuit. It's not just sit around and do nothing. And this is where people make a mistake. And it's an honest one, it's, quote unquote called rest days. But that doesn't mean we should, be a bump on a log and do nothing all day. It should mean you move, but you move without the direct intent of exercise. You go for a walk, you go socialize, you fill up your social cup, day-to-day activities, you still live and function through activity. And if you want to rest, there's no crime in doing that if that's something you feel you need and it fills your cup somehow. But there's a lot of people where rest day becomes, I need to lay on the couch all day, which actually, if you're recovering, if your muscles are repairing, if you're tired, if you're tight, not moving them does the opposite. It makes you more tight when you go to move again. It doesn't allow you to recover. It's not encouraging blood flow. It's like, so the difference I would say between being lazy and recovery is a choice. It's an active pursuit, whereas lazy is a response. You just let it happen. And, zooming out, I think there's a time and place for both. You just have to accept it rather than be like trying to justify it. You don't need to justify it. You just need to accept it and be like, today's a lazy day for me, and I'm okay because I did all of A, B, and C throughout the week, and this makes sense. Whereas if it's a rest day and you're like, oh, well, I have to do this because I worked so hard and this, and, I'm so tired and this needs to be done, and like, I just need a date on the couch. It's like, do you? Or do you just want to be lazy? It's okay. Like, we don't always have to have a reason to justify things, and I feel like people feel the need to justify everything.
Yeah. People are always, they just Lazy. Yeah, no, I've been through that. Ever since I stopped playing, it became more of a mental challenge to recognize when I was being lazy versus
Yeah.
now I'm a lot like I figured it out. But like initially it was geez, like do I need it? Like do I even need to work out? Not that I'm not playing because I don't have the thing to train for.
Yep.
But I want to go back to the aesthetics and like how we mentioned people have these expectations, right? A big concern these days is bigorexia,
Yeah.
right? And for those, I'm sure most people know, but bigorexia essentially very common amongst young men. It's when they are looking to just increase their muscle mass, and it's pretty much go, go, go. And then it just involves like risky, it ends up becoming like them portraying risky behaviors, crazy workout regimes, always, and even potentially, thinking of going down the route of using stuff
Yeah,
just to look
absolutely.
big. Have you encountered that, not necessarily with GPT, but in your journey up until now?
Oh yeah. When I stepped into a commercial facility and started working internally at it,
Yeah.
I was so surprised by the amount of people willing to go to the extremes of take performance enhancers and do this stuff. Even people that look like the average person.
Yeah.
But like it is so main spread and common. And that's what kind of blew my mind about it once I was involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, unfortunately, the world we live in now is an instant gratification. It's like I wanted things yesterday.
Yeah.
Whereas, you rewind a few decades ago and some of these things weren't available. And there was, patience is a virtue. You had to do the things, be patient, reap the benefits of the result in the long run, which therefore made it even more impressive because people knew the time to go into things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may see somebody and they're training hard and whatnot, and you see them in 8 weeks and they're double the size.
Yeah.
And it's like, that probably didn't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
But why?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's one of the problems about this stuff, and I kind of always dial back into faulty expectations, is we have the expectation set for ourselves that this, whatever it is achievable, and we want to get there and we want to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the time frame in which we allow ourselves to do it is not realistic. So in order to do it, now you have to influence that. And that's what requires more.
Mm-hmm.
And what people tend not to realize is when we make these decisions, every decision, comes at a cost.
Yep.
By doing one thing, you're not doing something else. And it's just it's the cost benefit analysis all the time. It's like, I very much sit on the fence with a lot of these things. I don't see it being good or bad. I see it as a perspective as to what's your goal? What do you want to do with it? Is it purposeful? There are situations where the guy might be at the gym wanting to juice up because he has no confidence. Well, guess what? Bigger muscles doesn't increase confidence.
But isn't that like the perception though?
Exactly. And that's what it is. It's simply a perception, right? And depending on which side of it you're on, it's the same thing with people where they feel like, I'll be able to find a partner easier if I have abs, if I have this thing. At the root core, it doesn't actually
Go dad bods.
Go dad bods. It doesn't bring you what you think it's going to bring you. It's the whole paradox of like grass is greener on the other side thing. Like until you get there, you think it's something it's not.
Yeah.
And this is what I think contributes to that whole bigorexia approach. It's like they get bigger. Well, then it becomes the norm. Well, now I'm not satisfied. I need to get bigger. Then it becomes the norm. When in actuality, they're avoiding solving the real problem
them
of whatever they're trying to achieve, right? Like maybe there is, I guess. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but like nobody is getting bigger just to get bigger. What's the goal?
There's a ultimate like.
Are you going on stage? Are you trying to create a lifelong career as being a big bodybuilder and do that? Are you trying to get endorsement deals? Like, sure, that's a motive. That makes sense. And to some degree, it could be what's required at that point. I don't know. That's not really my sort of field of pursuit. But on the other side, there's people that are willing to do things to their body sacrifice this, go through it all now, so they feel and look better when they go to the bar. Yeah. It's like, is it worth it? Or maybe was there another solution that got you to the same result without that? And I think it's just being able to identify, well, that question is like, is there another approach that's more optimal? That's the hard part, because one of them's in your face and one's easy.
Yeah, I think in my head, there are two options and that's it. It's either you take the easy route or the hard route.
Yeah.
Now, and this thing of in the instant gratification these days, people's tolerance has just dropped off a cliff, right? You think about
there's no resiliency.
Yeah, Instagram reels, like the amount of psychology that goes into creating a reel, and this is from me like recently getting into it a lot more, is you want to get the attention span, and it's so small.
Oh yeah.
Like sometimes like, your reel needs to be a quality reel, but the caveat, it can only be 15 seconds.
If you don't catch attention in the first 5 seconds, they're gone.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, am I, am I a victim of this? Yeah, mine too, for sure. But it's like, how do I, going back to the easy versus the hard way, it's even pertinent in weight loss now. People are using like Ozempics, right? Oh. And that's a whole different, they're like, yeah, okay, well, I want to lose X pounds or kilos of body weight. Yeah, Ozempics are going to do it. I don't have to move, but yeah, I'll do it.
For sure. And like,
I'm like, mate, just go for, like, what? But is it natural though? Do you know what I mean? Like that, the cost that you're saying right now. So if you get juiced up, for example, like the number one thing that goes is your testosterone gets affected. Sure. Right? Which then, let's say you're like, yeah, okay, I want to look good and whatnot, but then you also intend to have a family down the line. Well, hello, have you done the research? Like, there may be a chance that you might not be able to.
Yeah, there's lots of potential issues, right?
Potential issues that could occur.
And so many things.
But the point being, like, it's long-term thinking. But here, just for short-term enjoyment, you're putting your life on the line to an extent. Now, obviously, I'm not saying, and I'm just speaking for myself here, these are just my views, huge disclaimer, but it's these are just my opinions. But like, if it's serving a purpose, I understand it. Let's say it's like, going on stage, etc. It makes sense. But then if you want to look big to impress a girl, but that's what's happening these days. And I'm sure you've watched these documentaries, like in the UK, I think it was, like there's a big one that came out where it was showing the growing concern with the number of teens thinking about using these things because they suffer from bigorexia. They're like, I just want to look big, and I'm thinking about doing it. So, what do you think fitness professionals in the industry can do to, promote healthy body image and sort of help with bigorexia? Loaded question, I know.
It is, yeah. That could go a lot of directions.
Yeah.
I think, when you really strip it down, what fitness and health professionals, the number one thing they could do is when they approach putting out their message, talking to people, it needs to come from a position of value. And how can you add value or create value for the person in front of you, for the people that are seeing your stuff, not how can I get popular. And I think oftentimes we struggle with, there's a lot of stuff out there, viral things that are completely mindless that, all these, there's a ton of people that want to create something that goes viral, and they're willing to sort of sacrifice their morals and ethics to do so just to get the thing. And then there's a ton of really good educational stuff out there that's truthful and science-backed and stuff like this, but it can be boring, or it doesn't capture attention in the short attention span, like you said. And, it is essentially an investment, and like it's an investment of time. And so I think the biggest thing we can do, and I always strive to do this myself as much as possible, is, be able to educate from a realistic expectation approach for things without a bias. And that's the key there. I think a lot of people have no problem doing so, but they have their bias of like, nah, this is the only way it works and here's why, as opposed to being like, I know this way works, but there's probably 7 other ways that work. But it's the principle versus strategy approach, right? And we run into this a lot when it comes to weight loss and different things and everything, actually. It's like there's principles that, move the pieces and they pull the levers and get you where you want to go. And strategies is how you do it for you, right? So strategy is interchangeable. It's personal. It's what's going to work for you. It doesn't have to be picture perfect or what somebody else did, as long as the underlying principle still applies. So when we create our programs, when we do our coaching, it's principle based. And then when we learn in the intake about the person, we implement the strategy that seems most likely to work based on the conversations had. So on paper, it may not make any sense, but to the person I'm trying to help, it does. And that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
Right. So I think when we can start to see things through a communication based approach and actually trying to help the person in front of us instead of trying to make it look like we know what we're doing, to some degree, that makes a big difference. And a lot of things I see coaches doing in the industry right now, especially through social media, is they create their content for other coaches. They're trying to seem really smart. They're trying to use all these technical terms. Yeah. But the person you're actually trying to help doesn't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Not being authentic at all.
And they could be being authentic, but it's being authentic from the wrong lens. Like, are you trying to help people or are you trying to impress other coaches? Which one's going to actually help your business? Not other coaches. People. Right? And like, there's always such a massive opportunity of just honestly giving first, helping first without expectation. And I think everything is so transactional now because it's almost forced to be. It's like, and we had this discussion before about like the first thing people think of is, how do I monetize doing this thing? And it's like, why does it have to be transactional? Why can't you do it with a purpose and a passion and just to actually create benefit? Whatever happens, happens naturally. And like through coaching, I think we need more of that. But I will attribute a lot of the industry to, you go a lot of places, and as much as it is important in the process, the product in itself does not become as good because they're so focused on selling. And it's like, great, you just got 20 people in the door because you're really good at talking someone into sales, but are you 100% confident you can actually create the solutions and solve their problems? Yeah. Or, give them what they came for? Most people won't say yes to that. That's the problem with the industry. Is like, we view things through the wrong lens of business first. It's people first. It has to be.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Is that just greed, would you say?
There's lots of factors, right? I think part of it is, you look at our current economy, you got to survive, right? But I think you can survive by creating value, and then in essence, it becomes valuable when you create value. Whereas, the other approach, and this still works for some people. I see very successful people doing this, making way more money than I am, way more success, that it's a revolving door of people they're servicing because they're in and they're out, but they're really good at selling somebody new when that happens. They're in and they're out, and they're in and they're out. I'd rather work with people, way less people for a longer time, because I'm constantly creating value and they see it and they don't want to go. I don't want to have to sell somebody my services and prove to them why I'm going to be good all the time. Yeah. And it'll come, it'll happen. But again, it's being valuable, right? That's what we want to do. Valuable to the people in front of us. So that way when they show up, they're like, oh yeah, I needed this today. And here's all the reasons why. Yeah. Not like, I came here because I paid for this. Let's see what happens. Like, and there's a trust component to that that's built over time. I was
just going to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a trust component to that that's built over time. And like, it's a give and take, because you do still have to have the transactional component of things when you're when you're running a business, when you're in the service industry, but it should be from a people first approach, in my opinion, at least.
I don't think I can disagree with that, because people, and it's so funny because I got into neuroscience quite a lot recently, and one of the things that in your brain you have like your parasympathetic nervous system and your sympathetic nervous system. And I've mentioned this, I've had an episode on this called Manifestation is Real. But what it is your parasympathetic nervous system is your sort of loving, caring, giving mode that you're in. Your sympathetic nervous system is your fight, flight, freeze.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
But your body's default is the parasympathetic nervous system.
Always.
Right? But in today's era in which we live, our default has shifted to the sympathetic nervous system because of the environment we're in now. And this sort of, the reason I'm tying this back is because I'm just trying to process it in my head, is business professionals often, they're trying to sell services, but they're often in their sympathetic nervous system, which is off this fight, flight, freeze, where it's like, okay, I need to make something out of this, otherwise I'm not going to be, I need to make ends meet. Sure, fair enough. But then it's from their point of view, not the people's point of view. And 100%. What they should be in is a parasympathetic nervous system, so that they can think of it, have that empathetic lens, and think of it from what value, how can I change this person's life?
For sure. And like, when you are like that, you're going to send some people away. And
which is good.
It is good.
That's the wrong crowd.
What's best for the person.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like, in doing so, it's when someone's maybe not a good fit, or there's a better option and it is not you, regardless of what industry you're in doing that, it makes you more of a professional, because you're actually caring and looking out for the person that's sitting in front of you instead of your own well-being. And like, that is ultimately, like, by definition, being selfless in a sense of like, and nowadays I see, even in regular interaction, there's always a what's in it for me approach with a lot of people. And business is like that. Like, a lot of places, it's a what's in it for me approach, which to some degree has to be, for sure. But when you're in a service-based business and you're working with people, you have to understand that, and you have to do genuinely what's best by the people. And when someone comes to you for help, that is such a big level of vulnerability for this person, that if you take advantage of it and just sell knowing you can't help, that comes out in the wash. Like, you'll be constant turnover, fighting for your next meal all the time, instead of actually helping.
Yeah.
And I think everything needs to be rooted, at least in this industry, from that perspective of like, you are dealing with people. You need to understand that, there's a trust component. They're vulnerable. There's a lot of different factors here. And, they're going to show up in different states all the time. But it's meeting them where they're at and doing what's best for that person at that time. Not just trying to sell them and go through your day. And
I can vouch for it. Like, every time, ever since I've been with GPT, like, that's one thing I've noticed is you're very selfless. But, and this may be a bit of a deep question, but how do you think people can become selfless? Like, how can they put others' needs before theirs? Sometimes. I'm not saying all the time. Sometimes. With this generation that we live in.
I don't know. I still think that can,
if you're like a guru for a day, right?
I think it
Guru
ties
Dustin.
Back to nature versus nurture a lot. Like, how were you raised? What was your environment? Were you in an environment where it was like, hey, I'll do what I can to help you and not expect something in a return? Or are you from a tit for tat environment? When somebody does something, you feel pressure to return a favor. Like, I think that sets the tone for a lot of things. And then amongst that, being the underlying foundation, how your interactions go and what environments you put yourself into throughout life determines which way you go there.
Yeah.
And I attribute everything to being a skill. Reason I say that is because I think when we attribute it to being a skill, we can learn it, which means we now have control. We can do a thing. And this is a difference. It kind of links with being like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. It's like, I am not good at reading, or I hate reading. Or is it, I hate reading because I haven't found out what I'm passionate about or what I like to read or what drives interest? Different sort of perspective, right? And I think that goes for when we can attribute selflessness to being a skill. It's like, okay, well, how can we define it? Through action, through behavior, not through just words of like, okay, what does a selfless person do? They give without expectation. Okay, what's an example of that? I bought my friend a coffee today. Cool. Period. End. I bought my friend a coffee today so he'll get next time. It's different, right? And I think once we can identify clearly what that skill, what behaviors align with the skill for our own definition, we can then practice them. And then in doing so, and this is something that has helped guide me quite a bit, is through a lot of things I do, if I'm not good at it, I know that if it's important enough and I need to, I can get good at it. It's just a matter of time and putting your focus on the right things. So, and I speak to clients about this kind of stuff all the time. It's like, oh, well, cardio's not for me.
Because
okay.
It's cardio.
I was like, yeah, no, fair. No. But maybe it's for you if you find a way you like. You ever been kayaking with your family on the river? Oh my God, yeah, it's so much fun. Do it for 40 minutes. Cardio. Oh, it's not just a treadmill. It's just perspective, right? And I have this story that kind of like lives rent free in my head. I don't know if you heard it. It's like, it's the maybe story. I think it's about, and I might totally butcher this, but it's about like Chinese farmer. It's about perspective. And to kind of summarize it, Chinese farmer had a horse ran away. People from the town said, oh my God, it's so sad. Your horse ran away. He said, maybe. Next day, horse comes back with 7 other wild horses. Got a bunch more horses. Town comes back like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. You just got all of these horses. He says, maybe. Next day, son is out there trying to train one of the horses, basically, get one of the wild horses settled, and falls off, breaks his leg. A bunch of people, oh my God, we're so sorry. It's so sad. Your son broke his leg. Guy says, maybe. Next day, recruiting for the army comes by. Can't take the son because he has a broken leg. Town's like, oh my God, this is so good. He didn't have to go. He's like, maybe. And like, I just really like this story because everything's perspective based, right? And I think a lot of life is that. Like, there's one person that wants to be outside on a beach on a sunny day tanning and it pours rain. They hate it. But to the farmer that's growing crops, it's the best day ever. Everything is just a shift in perspective.
Yeah.
And it's truly about like, what side of that perspective are you on? And do you have it within you to try and see the other sides to make something out of nothing? And so, yeah, that's a story that when anything good or bad comes my way, I kind of always think maybe before I respond, because I'm like, this could be really good. This could be really bad. Or when something bad comes my way, I'm like, this is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
What can we do?
Growth
right?
mindset.
Exactly. So I think it's very much perspective based, and I think that goes for everything.
Massive. Yeah, it reminds me like of the cliche that we say, right? Like everything happens for a reason kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when let's say shit hits the fan, you're like, oh boy, this is like bad. Or like you're in the trenches.
Yeah.
But you like having that self-awareness of, oh, okay, yeah, I can see, like, yeah, it will pass. I just got to get through it. Versus,
absolutely,
I'm doomed.
Yeah.
But I really like that story.
It's a great story. Like that just, it sits with me forever since I heard it.
And speaking on perspective, something I keep thinking about is, like self-acceptance of people, just being accepting themselves who they are and then constantly pushing. I call it the why aren't I enough dilemma, right? With the idea is that self-improvement is great, right? We've always known that. But it can lead us to sometimes never feeling satisfied.
Yep.
And the fitness culture in today's society often talks about, like, you can always be better. You can always be a high performer. But at what point does growth become, how do I say this? At what point does growth become self-rejection?
I don't know. I've never thought of that question. At what point does growth become self-rejection? But I think, and it's another one of those things where we have to be process oriented, not outcome based, right? And like, if we start to realize that the growth and the progress and the positives and the things come from the actions in which we're doing on the pathway, not the end result, we then shift our perspective to be able to appreciate things. And then it's not about getting better does now not become, or like accepting of self does not become a measure of an outcome-based goal. It becomes a measure of a progress. And it's like, did I do the things today? Yeah, I did. I feel great. Did I do the things today? Yeah, I did. I feel great. Oh, look, after 100 days of doing the thing, I got the outcome. Whereas when we look at things as strictly as an outcome-based goal, every day you don't have the outcome is a failure. And I think this is a big mindset when it comes to fitness and health. It's, great, I want to lose 100 pounds. Cool, that's a massive goal. But if we just focus on you coming in here being like, I want to lose 100 pounds, every day you step on the scale and you didn't, you failed. But if we focus on, okay, what does that mean on a daily level? It means, did I show up to the gym today? Did I walk? Did I drink some water? Did I get some sleep? Did you do those things today? Yeah, you got better. Boom, we're in control. We are not in control of the outcome all the time. Things happen, but we can be in control on the actions we do on the daily level. So shifting that focus, it's a very hard thing to do. This is, as a fitness professional, we're always striving to do that with people and like try and shift that mindset because we're so outcome based, right? It's like, in all aspects of our life, it's, I want to get to the thing. I want the thing. It's not, what does this thing require me to do every day? And that is my measuring stick for success personally, right? Not the outcome, but did I do the things that will lead to the outcome? Then it's a successful day. And that's all. And I think like when you start to shift that into the minor instead of the major, it's like, it's good to have aspirations. And this is where, you see a big push on habit-based approaches to things. It's like, those are the things that create the momentum that keeps moving. Whereas if you try and just focus on one thing and moving it in one go, you're going to fail more often than you're not. But so it's just, again, a perspective thing as to like, are you focused on the internal locus of control as to, are you doing the things that you can do that will get you there? Are you building the blocks that will, create the bigger structure? Or are you just focused on the end result and every time you don't get there, you're upset? It's like, I don't have $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, I can be upset about not having $1 million every day. Or I can start educating myself, reading books, doing the things, working hard, and being like, this is going to get me closer every day to $1 million. One's in my control, one's not. And I think when we take that control of things, we can actually reframe our approach and therefore feel better about our actions.
Yeah, it reminds me something that I learned at a very, I would say, relatively young age was like controllables. And like, you have two types. You're in like variables that not controllables, variables.
Yeah. Like
the ones that you can control and you can't control.
Yeah.
Right. Internal, external. External variables, you have, they're external. You don't know. They could like change based on environments, etc. But the internal variables are the ones you can control. And if you can control those, then they actually have a very positive outlook. But then people sometimes they try to control the external variables, which then becomes a bit of an issue. But like in terms of, but what I'm hearing is it's all down to perspective again.
Yeah. And like the brain is wired to process negatives more than it is positive. It's just natural. It's a survival mechanism. We seek survival, and in doing so, we perceive threats, we perceive hardship, and we try to avoid it. It's hard to push back on it. And that's why at least when it comes to fitness and health, this is why the supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar booming industry. Because people are hoping they can take a thing with minimal effort and it'll get them the result. Because getting it another way is hard. The Ozempic approach. And don't get me wrong, Ozempic serves an amazing purpose for the right people, but it's also become somewhat of an easy button for people if they have access to it, right? And we see things like different companies out there, sort of pharmaceutical online labs that are selling it readily available, which is the wrong push, because it's focusing on an outcome instead of a process. Well, guess what? You rely on Ozempic to get you to that goal. You get there, you stop Ozempic, you still have terrible habits. You're going to go backwards, or you're going to be relying on Ozempic. It's out of your control. Whereas, used as a tool to kickstart things while you actively focus on learning the habits, now we got something, right? So I think it's being able to balance both. It's like, what can I do and what is in my control versus what do I need help with, but not reliance on, right? And that is something we see so much here. It's like, things are hard to do. If they weren't, everybody would do it. And then it would be norm. And then you'd want to do something else, right? And this is the one thing I love about fitness and health is like, it is probably the only thing I can think of that you somewhat can't buy. You see someone that is fit, you're like, they put in the work. Even if they're juiced up and doing all the extra stuff, they still got to show up and lift. They still got to do the work. Like, you can't buy that physique. It's earned. And that to me is probably the utmost highest form of self-respect. If you're willing to do what's necessary to keep yourself healthy, you respect yourself. That's great. I'm not saying extremes. I'm not saying you have to be ripped on the beach. But do you get up every day and do things that are good for your heart, your energy levels, your hormones? Are you paying attention to what you eat 80% of the time? Are you balancing or creating harmony with social life and friends and being able to go have the occasional social drink or, the occasional pizza celebration at somebody's birthday? Like, this is life, right? Life is about sort of finding the things you enjoy the most and trying to create as many days as possible that consists of doing those things. That's how you win, right? And it'll change based on seasons and outcomes. Like, when you're a kid, you don't care about something like an accomplishment of, I want to buy a house, for example. You don't care about that at 8 years old. You care about, I want to look really fast in my new light up sneakers. When I go to the park, I'm going to be fast, right? And you get there and you're like, I look so fast today. And like, but then, you're in your late 20s, you're in your 30s, and you're like, I don't need the light up sneakers anymore. I would like to buy a house. And again, that's an aspiration. And I think there's a good relationship of having these things, but like things change. And I think you have to have some, I guess, forgiveness with self to realize that like things will change and what you can do versus what you could do will be different someday. And it's just reshaping your expectations as to like, why are you doing it?
What a perspective.
Yeah.
With that said, what's next for you? What's next for GPT?
Oh man.
What's coming up?
If you were to go through my notebooks as to like potential ideas, future visionary approach to things, man, there's like GPT gyms on the moon. No.
To the moon.
It's just bizarre. And I'm very much I always like concepts and ideas and sort of creating these things and then trying to figure out what is in the way of making it happen. Balancing a little bit of what's realistic versus maybe what's not yet because I don't know how. But what's next for GPT is continued growth. We want to continue to grow, continue to create an impact with more and more people through helping them. Hopefully I foresee either a bigger facility or another facility kind of thing so we can increase the scope as to how many people we help and how we do so. But, we're on a mission to help as many people as we can. right? Regardless of what that looks like for that person, it's to create that environment and continue to give and help. And how does that look in regards to a business scale? Quite frankly, I'm not sure yet, because it has kind of laid its own bricks in front of me as it's developed, because you start to realize what's needed and where the gap is and where the opportunity is. And then it's just about being able to pick up on opportunity and knowing when to act versus when to let it pass. Because there's always going to be opportunities, but you don't have to do all of them. So what's next is hopefully continued growth through helping others. Maybe a bigger staff, maybe bigger impact, maybe more ways of educating and impacting. Who knows?
I'll add something there. A facility in Toronto.
A facility in Toronto.
Manifest that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You never know. You never know. It's a tough market out here, though.
Oh, 100% with this economy. Jesus Christ. No, but then this is something new.
Okay.
Never done this before. Well, I've only had one guest, so the idea is
Guess number
rapid
2.
fire.
Yes.
Just a couple of questions. Just see where your mind's at. So first one is, one daily habit that's changed your mindset.
Oh, okay. It's rapid fire questions. Putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
Daily habit that's changed my mindset.
Yeah.
How big of a scale are we thinking here? Like my
Anything.
small daily actions, or bigger scale business
something
wise?
that potentially keeps you in check. Like, let's say you have this mindset, right? Oftentimes you read books, for example, or you read I don't know, we have chats and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I like what I've heard and I want to implement it, and you start implementing it. But then sometimes when an event occurs, you go into this negative spiral sometimes. But then how do you remind yourself of
okay,
how do I revert back to the OG mindset that
gotcha. One of the biggest, I guess, for lack of better terms, I'll say evolutionary things that has come across for me in this process has been tracking metrics, regardless of what they are, whether it's, financial metrics, whether it's numbers of progress for clients, whether it's metrics on, output and production on my end as to content, educational things, what I'm doing. Tracking in itself in metrics allows you to make informed decisions. It's not just off the cusp. It's not just I feel like this and it's a result of emotion. It can now be in some degree educated approach. That has been a game changer in making bigger decisions easier, because it helps me remove the emotional attachment to the decision and make sure that it makes sense. So even when it comes to books, it's I'm tracking the information I like and what I am reading. When it comes to making decisions in business, do we need to buy this piece of equipment? We are tracking to see whether it's going to get use, if we are in need of it, how many people are using the existing one. We have information to make decisions off of. It's not just off of intuition and how we feel. And there's a time for that too, but in the grand scheme, it allows you a little bit more, I guess, comfort in knowing you're making decisions based on information.
Yeah.
Not just intuition.
Yeah. That's there's one of my mentors actually told me once, numbers don't lie.
No, it's
Simple
true.
as that, whether that's finances, whatever. But then if you attach KPIs to it, to whatever you do, easy way to track, because you're okay, it is what it is.
Yep.
Now let's get into rapid fire.
All right, let's do it.
No, one of the ones I had was, what is one myth in the fitness industry that drives you insane?
Oh my God. You need to sweat to have a good workout.
Ooh.
I can't stand that one.
Okay.
So many people, especially with how popular these F45, Orange Theory, these go circuit hit style classes are. It's if I'm not red in the face and sweating, I did not have a good workout. I'm that is so far from the truth.
Yeah.
And, there's such a genetic component to that people are trying to chase the wrong thing sometimes, and having to reframe and reset expectations drives me nuts. I have that conversation all the time.
Right. And then what is one quote or belief that you have that keeps you grounded when things get tough?
When things get tough, I'm a really big fan of a quote like, nothing has meaning until you choose to give it one.
Nice.
Because
I
like
love that.
something is not bad until you convince yourself it is. Something is not good until you convince yourself it is. So I think that's something that kind of lives in my head all the time. It's like when things happen, good or bad, it's like, am I going to choose to label this as bad, or am I going to find a way to label this as maybe opportunity or learning or whatever it may be?
And the last one is a final message to anyone who's chasing high performance. Got a camera here. Speak to it.
A final message to anybody chasing high performance.
Yeah. In their fields, wherever.
In their field, in anything. I think reframe your expectations. It's going to take longer than you think. Keep moving forward, because that is actually the game. The game is to keep playing the game, not win. You win by playing. So regardless of if it's fitness, if it's nutrition, if it's in business, if you keep playing the game and keep showing up despite the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys, you will eventually achieve the outcome.
Yeah. Beautifully
That's
put.
it. Thank you.
Well, Dustin, this has been an absolute pleasure, mate. I really appreciate you coming down all the way from London in this crap weather.
Yeah, it's not a nice day.
No, super gloomy, rainy. It's like being back in England. But this was so insightful. I think for the listeners, for myself, I learned so much in terms of, I think the biggest thing for me was selflessness and how do you actually unlock it. But to see how you're so grounded, and I'll tell you what, GPT is doing very well. So just goes to show like how it's very important for you to stay grounded, even when you achieve success or when you're chasing success, right? But it's been awesome. So many learnings. I'm going to watch this episode once I put it together again. But man, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been, always a pleasure to hang out with my friend and just, shoot the shit and have a good time. But I do want to interject on that one thing and like just mention that it always takes a village. It's not just me doing things. I have an amazing staff. I have an amazing support system around it. It takes a village. It's not just one person pursuing. So
teamwork makes dream work.
Teamwork makes the dream work. It always does. Yeah, I love cliches.
Yeah. Well, guys, if you've enjoyed this episode, you know exactly what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the links wherever they are. And more of Decoding Wisdom coming your way. And stay tuned.